well-kept records that you didn't review. So the records have to be there for you to review the audit.
That is correct.
And if there's problems with the records itself, or you need to go and figure out exactly what happened with something, that's not really your job. Your job is to review everything we say we did, right?
That is correct.
Oh,
Yeah.
Just for clarification purposes, we have reviewed 3 separate audit firms.
Okay. 3 audit firms?
Yes. One is the prior auditor. Number 1, and number 2 is Robin Walker Group. This is number 3. Each audit firm that I have brought in, we've had meetings with IRH. They've looked at preliminary financial records, looking at what is needed to get the audit complete, a specific audit timeline, knowing the difficulties that we have, knowing our financial history and what the end result of our audit would be the potential refinancing of bonds and getting other loan sources if possible. So each audit firm that we've brought in, we've had several meetings prior to them coming to the board today. So they've been vetted, we've met with them, we went over our requirements, we went over the village's difficulties, and upon my comfort level, that I feel that they are able to handle the village's difficulties, now they're before the board today. So, and the reason I say that is I hear a lot of questions about records being prepared for audit, record difficulties. Well, first, we're not going to engage with the audit firm and start our audit unless all the records are straight. This is why whatever work IRH has done, these audit firms have met with representatives from IRH and asked them what work was done, what work is missing, what is outstanding, what needs to be done, with a specific timeline that the auditor provides to see if IRH can meet that timeline or exceed it, or if they're going to be under the timeline. So there's various specifications that have been followed specifically to ensure that we do not engage with an audit firm that cannot achieve the results that the village is looking for.
I see software that you use, manipulate, you use IDA. Your software.
Yeah, the software that we mentioned
Right.
is called IDEA.
Right.
That is a software that we use as part of our audit processes, and it looks at the data several different ways. We can sort it different ways. We can do cross checks, look at a couple examples. If we sometimes cross-reference vendors' addresses to employee files. That's one test we could potentially look at. It's just a database software that allows you to take the village data and search for duplicate payments, unusual payments, even dollar amounts. It's a very valuable tool.
Right, it just have something like edits into it, will give alerts or red flags on certain things like that, and that identifies once it's merged.
Yes.
And the audit file management caseware, you using that audit management file? Is it?
Caseware is really our internal reporting software to take the village records, and it helps us prepare our financial report. So that's really an internal software that we use, just for primarily the financial reporting itself.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you very, very much. Okay.
Thank you for your consideration.
Madam Mayor, if it's the board's discretion, I'm requesting that IRH's report section be moved up in the agenda to after this presentation, if possible, since they so similarly are related.
Okay, we'll go to reports.
Madam Mayor, I don't know if you require a motion to move items
Yes,
on
we
the
have to,
agenda.
which is number, I need a motion.
Madam Mayor, I'm asking to move item 5A14 up to, are we still in the general comments here?
We're in action.
We're still in, we didn't go to discussion, so we
We're
can
in presentation, so on our presentation, we make a 5.
bring it up to, yeah,
45-A1.
A1, correct, if we can do that.
Second.
The motion and second. Questions, comments? Roll call?
Trustee Williams. Trustee Wilson.
Aye.
Trustee Brooks.
Both sides.
Trustee McMullen.
Both sides.
Trustee Payne.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
And Mayor Coe.
Aye. Okay, IRH.
Okay, so, as Manager Page said, let me adjust this. IRH met with the prospective auditors to discuss the upcoming audit and what is required from the village and IRH to facilitate the start of their audit, which should get underway sometime in early April. Whipley prepared a timeline and we reviewed it. IRH reviewed it and we made some adjustments. And we made the adjustments based on where we're at with document availability, projected work involved to complete each category, and the complexity of the work itself. We're going to meet again with Whipley to go over the timeline and try to solidify that. In January and actually in the previous couple months, IRH has been assisting the village in reviewing and processing outstanding TIF allocation returns for several companies, including Atwater Realty, which is Family Dollar, and Avatar. We've also reviewed Exeter, Germany Properties, which is Midwest Custom, and WP Carey. Some of the returns have been outstanding for quite some time, and due to the lapse in time, it required a little additional effort on the part of IRH to get the documentation together. In that process, IRH worked directly with company representatives and gathering needed information. So to date, two of the TIF developers have been reimbursed, Atwater Realty and Avatar. And WP Carey and WP Carey and Germany are with the legal firm Montana and Welch for review. IRH has been working on reconciling out the TIF funds, and a review of TIF 2, and this has come out previously, is that there were funds that were residual funds in TIF 2 that were transferred to the general fund account. They should have been returned to Will County for distribution to the taxing authorities. And so IRH is working with the village on determining the final disposition of those funds. That's $1.2 million. IRH has also reviewed TIF 1 and found that similar to TIF 2, which had an investment account with Amalgamated Bank, TIF 1 also has a investment relationship with Illinois Metropolitan Investment Fund. And we're working on getting statements going back to the time that that TIF was closed to determine the final disposition of any of the residual funds pertaining to that. And we continue to review the cash accounts for TIPs 3, 4, and 5, making adjusting entries as needed.
John, from the back up, John, when you say here, right here. Reconciliation of Illinois Board of Bank accounts was completed.
Yes, for TIPs 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So for TIPs 3, 4, and 5, we're making adjusting entries. Those 3 TIPs are basically complete. Our audit manager, IRH audit manager, is in the process of reviewing the journal entries that have been prepared for entry into the system. So we're pretty much ready to get those entries into the system and get those funds caught up. There are still bank statements missing for some of the TIFs. As I mentioned, the Illinois Municipal Investment Fund for TIF 1, we're looking for statements for that. TIF 2, we're missing a May 2010 statement for one of the amalgamated accounts. We're trying to get a statement for TIF 4 for February for Illinois Fund. And TIF 6, we're looking for most of the statements for that fund. And working with the village to get those.
Now, this have, these some of the accounts that were given, and Mr. Rogers said something about the boxes that he couldn't get.
What we're doing with respect to that is we're working with the village manager to obtain missing records that we need. And from my understanding, as of today, you've obtained a disc from one of the banks that we should have tomorrow.
Good.
And once we review those, then we'll send the tips off for audit. We'll get those audited, and we should wrap that up just in a few weeks.
Very good.
And then
Steve? Trustee?
also, I'd like to add, when you're talking about missing bank statements here, so every time we fulfill a bank statement request, and those bank statements are reconciled by RH, sometimes there are a statement one here, a statement there that's missing. So sometimes we have to go back to the bank. Now this TIF 1, with these investment accounts, these are not ongoing statement requests. This is new information that's been brought to the village's attention as of the last 3 days, that there were monies from TIF 1 that were moved into investment accounts outside the TIF.
And what year was that?
2011 time frame?
Yeah, it was, we found out about it, about the investment fund from 2011. So the funds were probably invested sometime earlier than that. That's why we've asked for the records so that we can find out if there is truly, if TIP funds were truly invested. Most of the time people tell me okay, so what we need to do is find out if TIP funds were placed invested in a municipal fund, and if so, when the TIF closed, was that money used for legitimate TIF purposes, or is the money still in the account? We know that there's still money in those funds, and maybe that's money that has to be returned to Will County. We just don't know, and we won't know until we get the IMED documents. And I was told by Justilia today that it'll only take the signature of the village manager for her to get those. So
Very
it's not, it won't require board action to get that.
So I see you missing a couple of statements. So for TIF 2 bank statements, you're still missing one. Can I ask, what's the holdup on obtaining bank statements? If we still have monies in these accounts, and we have been doing business, why can't we get bank statements? What's the holdup?
What I was told is that in some instances, you have accounts that have signature cards signed by people who no longer work for the village. Therefore, if it's a bank account, it's going to take board action in order to get new signature cards. But and in some instances, it's just that the bank missed, when they were putting their packets together, they missed a statement. And I believe that's probably what happened with the one statement missing from TIF 2, that they need to close that account. So we can only speculate. We can't say with certainty what's going on with the bank. But I know that Cecilia told me that one of the banks has their records stored in Naperville, and they have a process where they have to go through their bureaucracy in order to recover those statements. So it's not as simple as saying, hand me the bank statements, and we get them the next day. But I know that she's been working very hard to on that project, along with the village manager, to get what we need.
Okay, so I was just asking because I thought a month or two ago, we heard that we were missing bank statements. And 2 months seems to me a little excessive.
Yeah, just let me say this. As our accountants go through different records, it may have been 2 months ago they weren't aware that they were missing certain records. But as they go through and do the reconciliations, they find records are missing, and a lot of times these records go back to 2011, 2012 time frame, because that's when we start to see mismanagement, all right? And so in order for them to make the corrections, they have to ask for records that may be retired.
Yeah, that's exactly, what we found in our review at TIF 2. We saw transactions related to Amalgamated Bank. So with that process, we had to work with Jucelia in contacting the representative with Amalgamated to obtain the statements. And once we did, of course, we found out that there was a large amount of money that was moved back into the village's general account that we believe should have gone to Will County instead. So,
I have a question about that. I'm sorry. Because I asked a question a long time ago about Amalgamated Bank, and they said we didn't have an account in Amalgamated Bank, and that should be on record. And now I'm seeing it. It's interesting. Because I said, I remember years ago, we had an account Amalgamated Bank. So no, we don't have an account. I don't know what you're talking about. But here it is. And it's interesting now.
right, and that's why we're pressing forward with TIF 1. We're seeing this, all of a sudden we're seeing this relationship with the Illinois Municipal Investment Fund. And it could be a similar situation, we don't know, where there may have been residual funds at the time the TIF was closed that may have been moved in the wrong direction. So we just want to verify that.
When was TIF 1 open?
When was it open?
Yeah.
I would think back 23 years prior to 2009, so whatever that would be.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty now. Okay, and then
Yeah.
they closed that.
2009, 2010?
Okay.
10, yeah.
It was closed in 2010, opened
Right.
23 years ago.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I just have one more question. Bank cards. So have they all been, signature cards, have they all been updated now? Can we put a policy in place so moving forward, they'll automatically be updated when signature change?
Or personnel.
Personnel, signatures, the people's signatures.
signature cards will not necessarily be updated for accounts that have been closed for decades. So the issue we're running into is accounts that have been closed for a significant amount of time, having signature cards that are not existent. Secondly, it's very uncommon for a municipality to have to request records going that far, because if they have a proper record management system and proper management of their statements, they should have them on file already. So this is kind of a quagmire type of situation that we're dealing with here. Now, I know the village does have an ongoing rule and ordinance in place that anytime there's a change of administration, change of village manager, mayor, or whoever, and signatories that are on that account, I know it automatically comes back before the board, at least 1 or 2 board meetings after the change, for signatories to be changed. We just did it when Manager Enya came on. We did it when I came village manager. So, I mean, I know that process is active and in place. The issue we're talking about is ancient accounts.
Is there anything right now that we can do on the board tonight or the next meeting that we can expedite this thing with the reconciling those old?
We're doing everything possible from our end. Anything that requires board action will be brought before the board. I would tell you that the missing documents is not an employee performance or employee-driven issue. It is an issue basically based on IRH going through their records, and as they're going through their files and reconciliations, they're seeing that they're missing documents. So it's not they requested documents and we failed to give it to them. It's more they went through the documents that we provided and there's missing documentation that we need. So I just want to clarify that.
So a decade or two of mismanagement of decade or two. So in order for us to right the ship, it's going to take a minute or two to come up with the necessary, because of the mismanagement for 2 decades.
Just keep in mind too that these are not bank, regular bank accounts for that he's referring to with TIP 1 and TIP 2. They're investment funds.
Right.
And so that's why we weren't aware of it early on.
Madam Mayor, could I be recognized?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I thought you said everything started occurring around 2010, 2011, like when TIP 1 closed, when the mismanagement started. I didn't think it was 2 decades. Or did I miss something?
No, I mean, that's just when TIPs 1 and 2 were closed in 2009 and 2010. The mismanagement, it appears, goes back further in time than that.
Hello.
David, Tony?
Yes, let me address that. Back in 2003, 2004, the village had a federal grant, which was over $500,000.
Come to the mic. Like a bad phone there, you're going in and out.
Back in 2003, 2004, the village had a DECO grant that was $500,000 for the grocery store. In 2003, all $500,000 of that, except for about $14.52, was used inappropriately, which is what started that first FBI investigation in the first place, was about the money being transferred from the store to the village and back and forth. That was a grant from DECO. That grant was closed out prior to TIF 1 being closed. So in 2009, 10, and 11, we decided to use that IMED account to start a capital project fund. So the dollars that are sitting in that account was done based on the $10,000 that we used to get from that TIF company once a year. If some of you all are aware of that $10,000 that company used to give us, it got used occasionally by Mayor Covington. In other cases, it was not. When we got things in, they came in.
Wait a minute, clear that up.
No. It's not to be negative.
I'm just saying, used by Covington,
No. The money was, Mayor Covington, the board allowed Mayor Covington to use $10,000 to do something for residents in town. Is that better?
No, it was for Human Service Special Events Committee.
It was given
Right.
for the
Not
Human
to
Service.
me.
Not
That's
to
very clear. Thank you. Just get my name off that. All right, yeah.
Okay, I'm not-
You're saying
okay.
that it was given to me, so let's
Okay.
not say that it was given to
At the
them.
time, you was over Human Services Committee.
Thank you.
Okay, at the time, you was over Human Services Committee. So with the Human Services Committee, once out of maybe that 4-year period. So at least $30,000 of that money was put into their account. We were trying to build a capital project fund, so that IMAC fund, we did use that account for investment purposes, but that was money that if it was not specifically designated as to what that revenue was for, it was a miscellaneous item that came in. We moved those dollars over there because we was trying to get $500,000 aside for capital project. We heard the finance committee complain about, from the time I was here, that they did not have a capital project fund. So when you're talking about TIF 1 was closed in 2009. Those dollars didn't start investing into that account until 2010. So when they pull the bank statements, it's not that money that was in TIF 1 was used to go into the investment account for the TIF. There was no money in there. DECO, the $500,000 from DECO, we closed the account out. They have a copy of the contract agreement that closes the account out. We have the signature from the party who gave it to it. I shared that information a little bit to your village manager and to our finance chair at our last finance committee meeting, because I knew this was coming up, and I knew it was going to be portrayed differently. And I want people to understand clearly, there was no money in TIF 1 related to that IMAT account, because the DECO money, that $500,000 was spent between the store, which would open up the FBI investigation in the first place. That contract for that $500,000 was completely closed before money went into that account to be invested with IMAC.
And at that time, I was a trustee.
And you were a trustee,
Thank
you are
you very
correct.
Or when you give a little bit,
Mr. Sevier, you said you gave a little bit of the information to the village manager and the finance chair.
Yeah, because,
Is it possible that you can give?
no, and the reason why I won't do it, and I'll be 100% honest with you, when I tried to come to share this information openly and honestly, the report that you got prior to this one had a lot of misrepresentations about what I said in it. Frankly, it had a bunch of lies in it about what I said. And the report was given without my knowledge, and what was said in it was not something that came out of my mouth. So I addressed that at the last finance committee meeting, and because I don't like people lying on me, I don't need to willingly, because as I stated, there's 6 things I can state, as I state right here. I've been through an FBI investigation for this village. I have received unqualified audits, unqualified opinions or unqualified audits for this village. I have done bank reconciliations for this village. I've done TIF reconciliations for this village. I've done TIF reconciliations for this village. And all of that without the government saying that we did anything inappropriately, nor was anything out of place. And when I sit up here and I listen to somebody coming in from the outside trying to trash my community, because I'm a taxpayer here, I have a serious problem with that, because when you use words like surplus from TIF dollars, that's why Will County is talking about suing us, they have the state's attorney suing us, because we use the words of surplus. If you don't know and you're saying that we still owe people the TIF, in the TIF district too, how the heck you got a surplus to give back to Will County? Think about it, people. Think about what you're hearing. Now, there may have been a situation where there may have been, as he said, there may have been a residual in there, and until they reconcile what the residual is, stop using words as surplus, because that's what makes the governmental entities come looking into University Park, because we don't know what we're talking about.
But if we have 100% of the information as opposed to, let's say, 20% of the information, wouldn't that make it easier for us to clear this up?
And the 100% of that information was always here. What you heard at the meeting before was that Mr. Sevier took some documents away from the village and took them to his house. Mr. Sevier was smart enough to back up everything Mr. Sevier done for this village. And he backed it up on his personal drive. So when this stuff come up like this, Mr. Sevier can research that information and bring verification back to the table. But I'm willing to do that for the benefit of my community, but not at the benefit of being lied about, lied on, and scorned about. Because I'm not in hiding, because I don't have anything to hide. I'm here because I live here, and my tax dollars still work in this community. So that's the reason why I'm here. But I will not, and I stay clear, I will not, because 1, it's not my responsibility. 2, the documents was here. Maybe the FBI have them, maybe they don't. Wherever they went is not my issue. But if I was willing to do that openly, don't try to shoot down somebody who's trying to help, because you're so busy trying to point a finger or trying to find somebody. If the FBI is already doing our work moving backwards, why should our consultant be moving us forward? I don't need nobody, I need a consultant digging into what the FBI gonna look into too. That's a waste of my tax dollars.
Mayor, yeah, just a couple of things.
Thank you, Mr. Samuel.
First of all, your comment regarding the surplus was not something that was invented by IRH. I actually saw the letter from the previous village manager that directed the bank to have the surplus funds to come to the village. Okay, so that's not a fantasy. That's a fact. I saw the letter myself. Secondly, I was at that finance committee meeting when we started talking about the tips, and that you indicated that you had tip records at your home, and everybody was just flabbergasted because we've been looking for tip records all over the place. They were popping up here and there over a period of time. And I remember Mr. Ed Rogers there tried to bribe you by saying he'd get you the finest bottle of Irish whiskey if you would produce those documents, if you get those documents. And at that meeting, as I recall it, you said, okay, you would. Then subsequently, when he sent you an email to your private email, not your Richland Park email, you refused to produce the documents that you had. Okay? That is documented because I saw your emails as well as his emails on it.
But you just see the
Let
email
me finish
that happened
here.
January 1st prior to that email. That's what you didn't see. You saw what they wanted to share with you. You didn't see me giving them the direction where they could find the information that they were looking for because they
I was at the finance committee,
That was at the committee.
right, where you said
And I do have it.
that you would produce the records. We were flabbergasted that you had the records and wouldn't submit them to us, give them to us to help us solve this problem as you want us to do.
But that's not true, baby. Because when they, wait a minute, no, we're not gonna go back and forth. That's what I'm saying. That's your question. Because you remember when
I didn't ask the question.
when Trustee Mueller was
I didn't ask the
You
question.
didn't ask the question.
Right.
But when Trustee
I just made
Mueller
a
was here-
statement of the facts
Let me finish this.
as I know it.
As you know, they don't make them facts.
In all respect to the,
But
please.
can I just say this?
David.
Mayor Cummings,
Okay.
when Attorney Mueller was here, the same information that I was willing to share with them, with those TIF reports, was shared with Mr. Payton. It was shared with the Finance Committee Chair. It was shared with the Finance Director Sharon, right over there in that room on a Saturday morning. On a Saturday morning, when I came in there with 2 envelopes. And those envelopes had those TIFs reconciled from the time I got here to the time I left. They were shared with you, they were shared with the Finance Committee, they were shared with Attorney Mueller. I gave that package there, I even gave you all the